Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Chicken Tots. That's right, I was going to call this chicken tot poutine, since that's what inspired this, but I didn't want to trigger my French-Canadian friends, so we're just going with chicken tots. And at the time of this filming, it is my new favorite thing to eat. And to get started, I'm going to show you the proper way to bake a tater tot, which I think should be on a foil-lined baking sheet that we spray with a little bit of oil. And after rubbing that all over to coat, we will carefully place down the frozen tater tot of our choice by hand, which is the first official tip here. Okay, we never want to dump a bag of tater tots on a pan, because in the bottom of the bag, there's usually all kinds of crumbs and ice crystals, which are definitely going to hinder the crisping process. So instead, we will carefully place those down as shown. And then the second tip, once those are panned, I like to spray the tops with some oil, which I think helps make them a little bit crispier. And that's it. Once we have those spread out nice and evenly, they are ready to transfer into the center of a 425-degree oven for 30 minutes, which is 5 minutes longer than the directions, or until they're beautifully browned and look like this. Okay, so adding some extra baking time is the last tater tot tip, since for this preparation, we really do want them extra well done and nice and crispy and crunchy. Which reminds me, always make twice as many tater tots as the recipe calls for, because based on recent made-up studies, only half the amount you bake are going to actually make it to the final recipe. But anyway, our tots are set, and we can move on to making the saucy chicken we're going to spoon on top, which we will start by seasoning a pound of chicken thighs with a mixture of salt, freshly ground black pepper, and cayenne, and we'll do that on both sides before we head to the stove. And by the way, this is a pretty quick recipe, so we can actually do the chicken component while our tater tots are baking. And once we have our meat seasoned, we will transfer that into a skillet where we've melted butter over medium-high heat. And what we'll do is sear those for about 3 or 4 minutes per side, or until our meat is just barely cooked through. All right, as you'll see, we're actually going to add this cut up back into our sauce, which means we don't need to go too far at this point. And one thing to be aware of when you're cooking chicken thighs, sometimes you get one part that folds under another, which might not cook as evenly as it should. So if you see that kind of situation, flatten things out, and you should be fine. And yes, if you have one nugget of chicken that separates itself, you probably want to pull that out of the pan a little bit early, since that's going to cook a lot faster. But anyway, like I said, we'll cook those for about 3 or 4 minutes per side, or until they firm up and spring back to the touch. And if everything goes according to plan, we should have some beautiful browning on there, which always, every time, means more flavor. And once done, we'll remove that to a plate to rest. And then into that super flavorful fat remaining in the pan, we will add a mixture of diced red onion, along with an assortment of fresh pepper. And we'll go ahead and toss in a big pinch of salt. And we will cook that stirring for a few minutes, until we get some nice browning on the edges, and the pieces of onion start to turn translucent. And of course, stirring's always okay. But if you learn to toss food in a pan, like you're just about to see me do, it's so much easier and faster and better. And of course, we have a video to show you how to do that, using, believe it or not, cheese balls. But anyway, whether you stir or toss or both, once our veggies are looking a little something like this, we'll remove a couple tablespoons and reserve it for later, since I like to use that to garnish the top. And once we have, we'll go ahead and toss in some minced garlic, and we will stir and toss that around for about a half a minute, at which point we can toss in some freshly sliced green onion, as well as grate in a little bit of optional lemon zest. Right, you don't have to, but we are going to add a little bit of lemon juice. So we need lemons, and the zest comes attached to lemons for free. And then what we'll do is give that a quick toss before we deglaze the pan with the juice from half a lemon, followed by a nice big splash of chicken broth. Oh, and speaking of delicious chicken-flavored liquids, before we cut up our chicken into bite-sized pieces, let's make sure we add any accumulated juices from the plate into our pan, since to not do so is basically a crime against nature. And then what we'll do once all that's been added is let this cook, stirring occasionally, for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, until some of that moisture evaporates and the mixture is reduced slightly. Right, generally the rule of thumb is by about half. But anything close is totally going to work. And once that's happened, we can pour in our heavy cream, and we'll give everything a nice stir, and we'll wait for everything to start to bubble again. And once it does, we can transfer our cut up chicken in. And I know I didn't show you how to do that because you know that I know that you know how to do that already. And we will go ahead and stir that in and reduce our heat to medium-low. And then to finish this, all we'll do is cook that stirring until our chicken's heated through and our sauce is reduced to the texture we want, which could be very loose and saucy, or if you want, you can reduce it down until it's nice and thick. All right, as usual, that kind of thing is going to be up to you. I mean, you are, after all, the Napoleon Dynamite of what's wrong and what's right. But personally, I let mine simmer for about 5 minutes, at which point it looked like this. And as you can see, the sauce got a little bit darker and a little bit thicker. And of course, we need to taste it for seasoning and add another pinch of salt if need be. And then once we're happy with it, we'll turn off the heat. And if we want, we'll stir in about a half a cup of shredded cheese. In my case, a Monterey Jack. And as soon as that's been stirred in, we are pretty much ready to serve up. And of course, the cheese is definitely optional. But since poutine, which inspired this, is topped with cheese curd, I thought we should pay tribute and toss a little bit in. And that's it as far as service goes. We will add some hot, crispy tater tots to a bowl, and then top it with this amazing creamy chicken mixture, making sure to get plenty of that rich but not too heavy sauce. And then to dress this up, I did a little more grated cheese on top, plus that little bit of reserved diced onion and pepper mixture. And then last but not least, I finished up with a pinch of freshly sliced green onion, and what we're calling chicken tots was ready to enjoy. So I grabbed a fork and dug in. And that, my friends, as I said in the intro, really is my new favorite thing to eat. Okay, I just loved everything about it, which was not shocking at all, since anytime saucy meat's being served over potatoes, no matter what kind they are, I am pretty much in heaven. And while of course there are some significant differences, this really does have a poutine vibe, especially if you add that little touch of cheese. And as much as I love real poutine, this creamy chicken version is much faster and much easier, yet satisfied me in pretty much all the same ways. And sure, this would definitely work on French fries as well. But if I've learned one thing as a chef over all these years, is that people really do love tots. And if you serve them tots, they will love you. Which is why I really do hope you give this a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.